D. Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Willie Donick out today. Happy Juneteenth to those of you who observe the holiday.
Happy Juneteenth. And also, I am thankful for my beautiful daughter, Bailey Mylan Mason. So I'm just giving, thanks for her, that she's, that I'm her dad. So that's what I'm thankful for today.
That's very sweet.
Absolutely. So
I'm thankful that I shaved my head today without completely ripping it open, as I tend to do with these sharp razors that I have.
Okay. Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
I'm thankful for you guys. I get to work with you guys today.
Thanks, buddy.
Every day.
We appreciate it. Okay. Back to you, Adam.
Okay.
Why don't you use an electric razor?
Not close enough. Not close enough.
No, yes, it does.
Not for me.
I use an electric razor. You do it. Okay. Here, it's a process. Because what I do is I take the clippers, which are the ones I have are edgers, and I cut like the stubble off my hair, cut everything off, and then I go behind it with the electric razor, and it gets everything, man. It's so smooth. It's like a bowling ball. Just smooth. Try it out. You won't need. Hey, try it once.
Okay.
No, try it 2 cuts and see how you like it. And then you can tell me whether you want to stick with the old school way where you're going to eventually cut your scalp off, or you can try the new school way.
Shout out to our fellow balds out there.
You know what we're talking about.
And those of you who shave your head, but you're not actually bald, like me. I've still got hair. I just choose to shave it off.
I understand.
But nevertheless, I want to start with something that I saw yesterday that was pretty hilarious. So Bill Zito, the general manager of the Florida Panthers, was on the Pat McAfee show. And Zito relayed a story that he heard about Alexander Barkov, the captain of the Florida Panthers, and how Zito heard, that Barkov was going door to door in his neighborhood at 5 o'clock in the morning, knocking on people's doors to show them the Stanley Cup. And then one of those neighbors posted a ring video from his door. And it was so funny. Alexander Barkov, he walks up to the door, he rings the doorbell, he knocks on the door. His suit is completely, wrinkled. He looks disheveled because he was probably partying all night. And then one of his friends just shows up with the Stanley Cup. So imagine you're asleep. 5 o'clock in the morning, you hear
ding dong.
And you're like, who the hell could be knocking on the door? And you put on your robe and you go downstairs and you open the door and there's Alexander Barkov. And you're like, Alex, man, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing, man? And then here's the Stanley Cup.
You got to pep up now. You got to turn on all the lights. You got to pep up, man.
So I thought it was funny when Zito told the story, but then to see actual footage of Barkov showing up to someone's door at God knows what time, I believe it was 5 o'clock in the morning, with the Stanley Cup.
But here's the kicker. For those that missed it.
Oh, man. Can you imagine?
They are so mad right now. For the neighbors that missed that moment. Oh, they are so mad.
I'd be fuming right now.
Oh, my goodness.
We'll have to share that video.
Oh, my goodness. So, yeah. But, hey, listen, that's a tradition, it seems like. I think it's more wackier in hockey because everyone gets to travel with the trophy at least for a day than I think it is in any sport. You see, football players with the Lombardi, but it's usually them and their family members if they're out on a boat or something, or the NBA championship trophy. You see sort of the same thing, but with hockey, they really allow the fans to feel, a sense of, hey, we won this just like you won it. And I think that's the wonderful part. One of the wonderful parts about hockey is that, they have a steep tradition in doing things like that to try to, immerse their fan base and give them that same feeling that they have. So you're going to see, you know, at least over the last couple of years, you've seen some crazy things from hockey players with the Stanley Cup trophy.
Indeed, you have. And by the way, I believe the Panthers have already damaged the Stanley Cup. It can be quickly fixed, as I understand it. This, according to the Associated Press.
I wonder who damaged the Stanley Cup the most.
The bowl,
which team?
The bowl of the famous trophy is cracked and the bottom is dented. Not for the first time and likely not the last. A spokesperson for the Hockey Hall of Fame said the keepers of the cup are taking the appropriate steps and plan to have it repaired by the celebration parade on Sunday. Made of silver and a nickel alloy, the 37-pound cup is relatively malleable.
Okay. But I wonder which team damaged it the most?
Well, here's what it says. That's a good question. Here's what it says in the Associated Press story. Damage is nothing new for the 131-year-old silver chalice that has been submerged in pools in the Atlantic Ocean and mishandled by players, coaches, and staff for more than a century. Just this decade alone, the Tampa Bay Lightning dropped the cup during their boat parade in 2021, and the Colorado Avalanche dented it on the ice the night they won the following year.
Oh, my goodness. So I guess there have been some oopsies more times than not. So I'm sure, like he said, they have those. Do those rings just come off? I'm pretty sure they are detachable.
You know what? It's a good question. I should know the answer to this because, as most of you know, the winning team has their the names of the players inscribed on the cup, and eventually, because there are teams that win it every year, obviously, teams get pushed off. So that's a really good question. I will look this up because the Stanley Cup, for as beautiful of a trophy as it is, it does undergo some wear and tear.
Yes.
And it does get updated every year. So that's something to I'm interested in that. I will look that up. But the Predators, actually, who did not win the Stanley Cup this season, made some news yesterday on two fronts. The first was that Barry Trotz released a statement on Roman Josi. A couple of days ago, we talked about this report in a Swiss-German newspaper about Roman Josi being diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or
which is
POTS, not POTS, as I said the other day. Thank you, honey, for correcting me. POTS. And Barry Trotz released a statement yesterday saying, quote, Roman Josi was diagnosed with POTS toward the end of the 2024-2025 season. He has been undergoing treatment since that diagnosis and is progressing exceptionally well. We concur with Roman that with continued management and treatment, he can return to the ice for the 2025-2026 season and continue his elite hockey career. So the Predators are saying that Roman Josi will be fine. And POTS, according to Johns Hopkins Medicine, the symptoms of POTS include, but are not limited to, lightheadedness, occasionally with fainting, difficulty thinking and concentrating, also known as brain fog, fatigue, intolerance of exercise, headache, blurry vision, palpitations, tremor, and nausea. And it's something that can be managed, but Roman Josi is 35 years old. He turned 35 earlier this month, has a history of concussions, and I'm slightly concerned about this. I know that the Predators are confident. They say they're confident that he will return to the ice next season and be the Roman Josi we have all come to know over the past decade, however long it's been. But an older player with a history of head injuries dealing with this has me a little bit concerned, Derek.
It should have the Nashville Predators concerned, and it should have anyone involved with Roman and love Roman concerned. The concussion part is what's making this interesting, because he has had a history of concussions. And now he has been diagnosed with POTS, and some of the side effects, the symptoms, of that is dizziness and things of that nature. So um, they have to watch him very closely. And I'm sure, the doctors over there with the Predators, they're going to take great care of him. That's one thing, when you're a part of a organization or a professional team, when you're talking about the four major sports, especially a guy like Roman, they're going to make sure that you have any and everything you need, to make sure you're okay or your family members okay. So I'm sure he's going to get great care, but it's just the fact of you going out there and you get another head injury. How does that further affect, your diagnosis of POTS? So that's the part that I'm sort of worried about.
Josh on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, yes, once the Stanley Cup gets full, they pull the oldest ring off and put a new one on top, but they keep the original bowl. It's the only part that has the first team to win it and the oldest part. So according here to Sportsnet, every 13 years when the cup is full, it appears that the oldest of the 5 bands is removed. It's flattened out and then gets placed in the Hockey Hall of Fame's display vault.
Okay.
So it does come apart.
Oh.
Some teams just like to
help it
come apart by dropping it and God knows what else. But that's the fun part of the Stanley Cup. As I talked to you and Willie about off air yesterday, there was this whole thing during the Stanley Cup final about Brad Marchand and Dairy Queen. I can't remember the whole story, but people were wondering if he was eating Dairy Queen during intermissions, I think it was. It became this whole story. But then the Panthers started making Dairy Queen runs during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So there is absolutely, at some point, going to be a blizzard in the bowl of the Stanley Cup. But my question is, if you put a blizzard in the bowl of the Stanley Cup and turn the cup upside down, does the blizzard stick? Because that's the whole thing about blizzards, right? You're supposed to turn them upside down and they're not supposed to move.
But I think it's the material. I mean, the blizzard is sitting usually in some type of
it's a cup.
Yeah, cup. So it tends to stick to it adhesive.
Now, if
is different from what it would be at with the Stanley Cup trophy. Because
now, what if they made a blizzard with the cup? You see, like they put the cup in the blizzard machine and they make a blizzard with the Stanley Cup.
But it still would slide out eventually.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
once that cold hit that metal, and it's warm, it's gonna slide.
Yeah. But it'd be super cool.
It would be.
I mean, they put beer in the Stanley Cup.
Beer's different, man.
There's been beer in the Stanley Cup. There's been cereal in the Stanley Cup. There's been babies in the Stanley Cup. A lot of babies in the Stanley Cup. Eli from Smyrna says, I know someone with POTS. It's difficult for her to deal with in normal life. She often will pass out after standing up too fast and will get nauseous at random points just walking around. Can't imagine a professional athlete trying to deal with it. And
that's the part I'm worried about.
I'm always a bit hesitant not to take away from what Eli and Smyrna is saying here. I'm always a bit hesitant when quote unquote normal people say, well, I've had that injury and this is what it was like for me, when you're comparing it to a high level professional athlete, because we're not on the same level. You know what I mean?
It affects people different.
Right.
And maybe because, Roman is, from an athletic standpoint, he's always on the move and I'm sure he's in great shape. It may help. But then again, it may, enhance, your symptoms, because of POTS. So you just don't know. I mean, everybody body is different and we all, process diseases differently. And I'm sure, one thing I do know is this, and from what you said, just a everyday working person and someone that is part of $1 billion, business. And I mean, and it's part of making the thing go. And I understand on the civilian end, and I'm saying civilian like I'm not a civilian. But anyway, you got to understand that your care, as much as you want it to be great, isn't even close to the care that a professional athlete gets. It's just not. And it may be unfair. I get it. But when you see a guy that's dealing with an injury or diagnosis, and you see someone that you just may hang out with from time to time that has been a friend for a long time, never played sports, you will see the difference in how the medical team is assembled and how they take care of that player, as opposed to your friend John, Joe, or whoever. And I'm not saying it's fair, but that's just the way it is.
Sometimes it's like, and it's different with this type of situation, a head injury, versus when, I'm sure you've received a call like this in your long sports radio career. Someone will tear their ACL. A professional athlete will tear their ACL, and you'll get the call from someone, Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo from Murfreesboro will call in and say, I tore my ACL and this is what happened to me. I'm like, well, you're Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo from Murfreesboro,
who only played high school football. And this is Odell Beckham Jr. It's completely different. So maybe this is different because it's a head-related injury, but hopefully Roman Yossi will be okay. The Predators, if they have any thought of improving on their disastrous 2024-2025 season, they absolutely need Roman Yossi to be as close to 100% as he possibly can. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. But that was not the only news that the Nashville Predators made yesterday. They brought back an old friend, and we'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's best deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last. Tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on the Iowa Cubs. Pre-game begins at 6:20 p.m. and the first pitch is at 6:35 p.m. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So the Predators made two pieces of news yesterday. The first we previously discussed, a statement from Barry Trotz on Roman Josi suffering from POTS, but that they expect him to be ready for the start of the season. The other piece of news, the other thing that Barry Trotz did yesterday was he reacquired Erik Haula. You may remember Erik Haula. You may not remember Erik Haula. Erik Haula was here for one season. It was the 56-game COVID-shortened season in 2021. He played in 51 of 56 games, had 21 points in 51 games. He's back. I also learned yesterday that his nickname is Famer. Haula, Famer. Get it? I didn't know that. Clever. I didn't know that. Here's the interesting thing. So that season, NHL dressing rooms were not open to reporters because of COVID. So Erik Haula, that was his only season in Nashville up until next season. So I never got to know Erik Haula because I never got to walk up to him and introduce myself. The only time I ever talked to Erik Haula was over Zoom. So that's how long ago it was. Over the past 4 seasons, he spent 1 in Boston and 3 in New Jersey. But now he's back. The Predators traded defenseman Jeremy Hansel or Hansel. I'm not sure which one it is.
Hansel.
Like Zoolander. Either way, a minor league defenseman and a 2025 4th-round draft pick for Erik Haula. And here was my initial reaction to this trade, because as one texter on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, Sean said, Adam, why did the Predators go out and get Erik Haula again after 4 years or whatever it's been? So here was my initial reaction to this trade. The Predators should not have been giving up assets for Erik Haula.
Okay.
The Devils should have been giving the Predators assets to take Erik Haula. Now, in the grand scheme, is a 4th-round pick and a minor league defenseman a huge price to pay? No. But for the New Jersey Devils, this was a cap dump. He is in the final year, meaning Erik Haula, is in the final year of his contract. So he will be a free agent next summer. He has a cap hit of $3.15 million. So not a huge cap hit, but not insignificant, I would say. But this was a cap dump by the New Jersey Devils. Getting any positive asset for Erik Haula, even a lottery ticket, unlikely to amount to anything, should be seen as a win for the New Jersey Devils. They were just trying to get rid of Erik Haula. So, although, again, it was only a 4th-round pick and a minor league defenseman, I don't love the look of Barry Trotz trading assets for a bad player, because Erik Haula was a bad player last season. He had 21 points in, let me see, make sure I have this right. I believe he had 21 points in 69 games last season. He did. 21 points in 69 games last season. At one point, he went 28 consecutive games without a point. If you're looking at his numbers from the traditional standpoint, goals, assists, and points, if you're looking at his fancy stats, all of those things that I like to reference, they were all bad. So I don't love the look, Derek, of Barry Trotz giving up assets for a bad player, because last season, which is, I can call it last season because the season is over. Last season, Erik Haula was a bad player.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Erik Haula.
I don't blame you.
Okay. But how was his season? He seemed to be, from what I've read and what I've seen, he seems to be a good player.
He's a
solid player.
He is a solid player.
Okay.
Over the
last year sort of an outlier season for him?
That's a good question. If you look at his past 4 seasons, since he left the Predators, he went to the Bruins for 1 season and the Devils for 3 seasons. He averaged just under 40 points per 82 games, even with the 21 points in 69 games last season. So he can be a useful player.
Okay.
He can be a useful player in the right role.
Okay.
And Barry Trotz, his quote in the news release about the trade was, quote, "We are excited to have Eric join our team yesterday. He brings great flexibility to our roster with the ability to play up and down the lineup in a variety of different roles. We are confident that he'll be able to play alongside our young players, helping to accelerate their development."
Here, and I asked you that question for a reason, and because it leads me to what I'm about to say. Because this trade, at least to me, now you guys are more in the know. It seemed like this sort of came out of nowhere. It was sort of like those, oh wow, they made that trade. Like nobody even thought that this was. It wasn't on anyone's radar. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if that is indeed. But what happens also that day? Roman Yossi comes out. He's diagnosed with POTS. I think this is more so of an insurance policy. No, he's not a great player. No, he's not Roman Yossi. But, Barry said he brings flexibility amongst the defensemen.
Well, Eric Holla is a forward.
Oh, he's
not
forward.
a defenseman.
Okay. So that they may debunk what I'm thinking right now in regards to, because my thought was bring him in because Roman, we hope that he plays the whole season, but we understand that, hey, there may be a part in the season where he's not there.
I do think, to your point,
Uh-huh.
I do think that as the Predators look at who will become available in free agency or via trade, that they should make sure they have a contingency plan in place in case Roman Yossi is not available for the entire season.
Now, could they? Because I think it was either we talked because we didn't talk about this yesterday. So I heard it was either it was nationally or here on this station. It might have been Jared. May have not been, or it might have been this morning with the morning show. But could this be a potential, package deal moving him once more? Is that a possibility to put him a part of a package to send him somewhere else to get someone else?
The thought would be that because he's on an expiring contract, if the Predators season goes the way that this past season went, you could trade Eric Holla at the deadline and try to recoup the asset that you paid to get him. Could you realistically get a 4th round pick for Eric Holla at the trade deadline?
Depending on how he's playing.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say no to that being a possibility. It's just, again, it was a slight issue with this trade. And I acknowledge that I'm nitpicking here, but I don't love Barry Trotz giving up an asset for a player that the Devils were effectively giving away. If the Predators acquired Holla, let's say, with a 4th round pick, because the Devils, I'm not, acutely familiar with the New Jersey Devils salary cap situation, but this was a cap dump. They wanted to free up the $3+ million so that they could do something else in free agency. If I'm Barry Trotz and the Devils call me, by the way, the GM of the Devils, Tom Fitzgerald, who played for Barry Trotz in Nashville, captain of the Predators. If I'm Barry Trotz, I say, I'll take Eric Holla off your hands. Easy for me to say, but I need something with it. I need a sweetener. So that's the slight issue I have with this deal. I don't love Barry Trotz giving up an asset for a player who was bad last season. Chuck on our text line says, I liked Holla. He's got speed and he's pretty tough. Also, just like you quoted, he can play up and down the lineup, including center position or wing. I think this is an indication of some longtime Predators being released, like Colton Sissons. Another texter says, does he have any speed? Because that's what we're lacking. Now, I believe Eric Holla, again, it's been a few years since I've watched him regularly. When he was at his best, he was known for his speed. So Eric Holla, he can be a useful player. The other thing, too, is that he's old. Eric Holla is 34 years old. And now you're adding him to a team with, to borrow Jared's term, old pawpaws like Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea and Ryan O'Reilly. And, the list goes on. So I'm wondering, if Barry Trotz, if we're taking Barry Trotz at his word, this trade is He can play on a line with one of our younger players. He can show that player the way. I'm not sure I would have chosen Eric Holla for that role.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Eric Holla to me is the type of player you acquire because a team is desperate to get rid of him and they give you something to take him. That's the issue I have with this.
So
Again,
do you think
it's a nitpick. It's a slight issue. That was my gut reaction.
Okay, maybe I'm nitpicking here as well. And
pick that nit.
And listen, I don't want to, I'm not trying to start anything within, that locker room, but, it's odd, when Barry says, because you got a bunch of guys that have played a bunch of games on this roster. And on one hand, I can say, well, you can never have enough experience. Well, yeah, you can if it's old experience and you're trying to, bridge that youth gap. But shouldn't they have guys on the roster already that can help these young guys?
In theory.
Yeah. So it's like, are you telling us you don't believe you have enough of those guys that's committed to, the process of bringing these young guys along as well? I'm not saying he does. I'm not saying this team doesn't. I believe they do, but I guess again, you can never have enough experience unless the experience is long in the tooth with a sport that is getting younger and younger.
Sean on our text line says Barry Trotz just out here saying F them prospects, whether that's the outgoing capital or the roster spot Hall is going to take. Again, the percentage likelihood that the 4th round pick the Predators traded to the Devils becomes an impact player at the NHL level. I don't know the exact number. It's probably pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
This defenseman that was part of the deal, I'm not sure he has a future in the NHL. Again, it's sort of the principle of the thing.
Yeah.
For me, I don't love the idea of giving up assets for bad players. Now, could Holla bounce back? Sure, he could. I guess that would make him a Holla bounce back girl.
Hall of Fame.
Instead of a Holla back girl, he would be a Holla bounce back girl. See what I did there? Think about it for a second.
No, I get it. I get it.
So that's
Thank you.
There we go.
But that was a dad joke, so
Yes,
I get it.
So
it's a good one.
that's the thing about this, and we'll see what else the Predators have up their sleeves. The NHL draft, the first round of the NHL draft is a week from tomorrow. Free agency starts in a week and a half. We'll have Elliot Freeman on at 1:00. We'll talk about all of this and more with him now that the season is over and the off season is about to heat up. But that was just my gut reaction to this. Why are the Predators giving up assets for a bad player? That's what I want to know. But again, nitpicking. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Roman Josi, Eric Holla, the Predators, whatever you'd like. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. But coming up next, there is a delicate dance when it comes to marketing NFL rookie starting quarterbacks. In lieu of Cam Ward's new docuseries, Will Levis's experience last season with the mayonnaise cologne, I think it would be interesting to take a look at the best ways for teams to manage NFL rookie starting quarterbacks when it comes to cashing in on their name, for lack of a better phrase. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
he's all ball. Again, we talked about Pittsburgh. As far as an organization, it's just about ball. Cam's just about playing the game. Said on TV just the other day that he is the least hyped, talked about number one overall pick that I can remember. And I can't understand. I understand why, because of the other big personalities in the draft this year, at quarterback, namely Shador, and all the oxygen that he took out of the room as far as the discussion is concerned. But Cam is legit, man. That's how he is. That's how he was. That's what the coaching staff told you when you went up to Pullman at Washington State. That's what Mario Cristobal told you and Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, told you when you went down to Coral Gables in Miami. That this is who he is. And then when you watched him on the field and playing games, when you went to his pro day, he's about ball.
That was Louis Riddick talking Cam Ward. He's all ball. And I know people have pounced on that comment after it was announced recently that Cam Ward will be the subject of a docuseries on Tubi. I'm learning so much about Tubi over the past several days. I even looked it up. I'm like, oh, there's Tubi. But with the Cam Ward docuseries and people comparing it to Will Levis and his mayo-infused cologne commercial campaign last year, I found an interesting article that was written last year. It was last September in Sports Business Journal by Ben Fisher. The delicate dance of marketing NFL rookie starting quarterbacks. And it focused on the three of the top quarterbacks from last year. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix. And there was a quote from a former Minnesota Vikings CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, Steve LaCroix, not to be confused with the sparkling water. Quote, when you draft a player like that, you've got to make sure you're on the same page as coach and GM on how you position things. You have to be careful about putting that kind of pressure on a rookie. So I do think, Derek, that there are Titans fans who learned about Cam Ward's docuseries and thought, oh no, this is another Will Levis situation. He's getting too much before he's earned it. Could he be distracted from preparing for the season by working on this docuseries? And I don't know what the docuseries shooting schedule is. I don't know when he's going to do it, how long he's going to sit down for interviews. I don't know any of that stuff. But I do think it's interesting to discuss the best ways for teams to market rookie quarterbacks, because that's part of the game. Cam Ward is now the face of the Tennessee Titans. Cam Ward is going to be given lots of opportunities to cash in on his name if he would like. He's going to be approached about commercial campaigns and sponsorships. And who am I to say Cam Ward can't do that? If he wants to do it, totally fine. But I do think it's interesting to discuss the best ways of going about it. And this article touches on it a little bit. They were talking about Bo Nix specifically. And the article says, quote, Nix's marketing agents, Peter Webb and Doug Young of QB Reps, planned all along to keep Nix's endorsement deals limited in his first season. Under Oregon state law, his NIL deals had to expire upon his departure from the University of Oregon program. They stuck with the core categories of apparel, Nike, trading cards, Fanatics/Tops, memorabilia, WSD memorabilia, and 2 regional deals in Denver, auto, Kendall Auto Group, and banking, ENT Credit Union. The latter 2 are both Broncos sponsors, which enables a high degree of collaboration and alignment on demand for Knicks' time, they said. Also, they recently met with the team to strategize the Knicks game plan. We just flew out to Denver, spent 2 days talking with their entire team, really talking about this, Webb said. We're in lockstep with them for sure, which is, how do we do this in a way where he's a good teammate? Do they want to emphasize their first-round quarterback? Sure, like all teams do, but they're also very cautious and careful.
Yeah, and that's the part that I think is going to be the issue. How do they, knowing that, listen, they went through this last year, and no, Will Levis wasn't the number one pick, but he was your starting quarterback. And, you know, I don't know if there was any coordination between the Titans and Will Levis, but it seemed like the way it was rolled out, there wasn't really much talking, because I would tend to think that, you know, your head coach doesn't want you talking about, you know, cologne, or answering questions and going in depth about, you know, products that you're endorsing while practice has just ended or getting ready to begin. No coach wants that. So I think the ball may have been dropped, no pun intended, on this one, with Will Levis. I would have to believe that the approach this go around has to be much different. I'm sure the Titans knew about the whole Tubi thing. I, I would, if they didn't, it would be irresponsible of them, and I would be just floored if they didn't have a discussion with Cam Ward and his team about this docuseries that is coming up, because honestly, they would have to get permission if they're going to use footage. So that tells me that, yeah, unless they're just solely concentrating on before he got to the NFL and the whole draft process, then okay. But if that's not the case, if they want footage of the Tennessee Titans, then they have to talk with the Titans. They have to sit down with them. So I am positive that the Titans had a talk and they strategized with Cam Ward in regards to his job, which is to be the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans, and his few pastimes that he has, those things on the side, endorsements and stuff like that. We're not saying you can't do it, but you got to understand that being a quarterback is the reason you got those endorsements. So if you stop being our quarterback, ask Will Levis, those endorsements will go. They will cease to exist anymore.
So Ryan Poles, the GM of the Chicago Bears, was interviewed as part of the story. Again, this was written last September, so before the start of last season. And of course, he's talking about Caleb Williams. And in the story, it says, quote, Williams' proven ability to handle the demands of his NIL business, both personally and via his group of advisors, was a big factor in the Bears pre-draft research. Unlike a rookie of the pre-NIL era, Williams already had ample experience in balancing commercial work with football. The Bears liked what they saw. And then Paul said, quote, what we learned is that there's a really strong team around him, which does a nice job handling the business side of things and allows him to focus on the main thing, which is football. It's really impressive to see him lock in, and it feels like that's the only thing in his life. Now, I don't know Cam Ward's NIL deals off the top of my head. I imagine, like Caleb Williams, Cam Ward had plenty of NIL deals when he was at Miami. But I did find that interesting, that his ability to handle the demands of his NIL business, meaning Caleb Williams, was part of the Bears pre-draft research.
Well, it has to be. And that's the good part about NIL. Because you get it's sort of like, you know, dating or getting ready to get married. Some people like to live with an individual before they actually get married because they want to see what that person is about. Because you never truly know someone until you live with them. And I'm not saying know something like bad. I'm just saying their everyday habits. And are you willing to deal with those, you know, leaving the toothpaste out, or the cap off the toothpaste, or their toothbrush just laying around on your clothes. So you get a picture of what it can potentially be once y'all get married. And some people say, hey, I can deal with it. Some people are like, either you straighten it up or I'm leaving. Either or. This gives NFL teams an opportunity to say, all right, that quarterback. And this is where Shedeur Sanders failed miserably. He failed miserably. It wasn't about his talent. It was about everything else. I get an opportunity to see, before I give you millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, how you handle a couple $100,000, or maybe in some guys, you know, situations, $1 million or $2. If you can handle that, well, then okay, I feel better about drafting you in regards to that certain situation than a guy that gets the money. He's not a good steward of it. You've been a good steward of it. So if I give you more, what does the Bible say? If I give you more, you're going to be a good steward of that, essentially, in a roundabout way. Like, you got to be a good steward of the little things that I've give you in order for me to give you the big things. Caleb Williams passed that test. We got to see if Cam Ward can also pass that test as well.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the delicate dance of marketing NFL rookie starting quarterbacks. If you were the Tennessee Titans, how would you handle that with Cam Ward? Because there are going to be people knocking down their doors, hoping to get a piece of Cam Ward. Locally, nationally, it's going to happen. How would you handle it? 615-737-1025. And you know what? Let's give some tickets away, David James. Let's do it. Be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see Incubus at Bridgestone Arena a week from yesterday. So 6 days from now, Wednesday, June 25th, you can win a pair of tickets to see Incubus at Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, June 25th by being caller number 3 at 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. The Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David James here with you. Willie Donick out today, talking about the delicate dance of marketing NFL rookie starting quarterbacks, which Cam Ward will be soon enough. And Gino on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com, says, it's ridiculous. This docuseries is still a topic. I could not care less. A fraction of his free time away from the field was probably doing a 2-hour interview of questions that will be cut up and inserted throughout the series. He is not out reckless driving. He is not doing drugs, not playing Call of Duty. His off time still ended up being about ball. I can't wait for the season to start, and all of this nonsense will go away. And you know what, Gino? You're probably right. But I think the reason why this is a subject is because of what happened with Will Levis last season. Now, I don't see a complete parallel between the two because this is a docuseries versus an ad campaign. Also, maybe this again is nitpicking, but since I've already been doing that today, this docuseries is about Cam Ward's rise from being a 0-star recruit to being the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. That's already happened, right?
No.
Yes, he was a 0-star recruit.
Oh, I thought you said with someone else. This happened with someone else.
No, with Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Cam Ward.
Okay.
He was a 0-star recruit.
Yes.
Stop me if you've heard that one before. And he built himself up to being the number 1 overall pick. If the documentary ends there, which I think it will, he's already done that.
Exactly.
This is not a documentary about how Cam Ward went from being a 0-star recruit to taking the NFL by storm. It's about how he got to the point in April when he was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Again, I might be nitpicking, but I do think that's an important distinction. So I do think that's why, to Gino's point, I think that's why this docuseries is generating a lot of conversation. It's because of the Will Levis Mayo Cologne fiasco of summer 2024. I'll have to come up with a better name for it than that. But I was reading something from Buck Rising on A to Z Sports because he made the comparison between Will Levis's ad campaign and Cam Ward's docuseries. And he said, what followed was Levis cratering so badly after the Mayo campaign that he and the franchise became a total joke in the process, with weekly reminders of their collective failure in the form of mayonnaise ads. Ward's docuseries is not a total parallel, of course, but the same principles apply. Win games first. Let your play on the field do the marketing for you. Maybe then an actual audience on a legitimate platform like Amazon Prime, Apple, HBO, or Netflix can be invested in your journey. Lack of interest in a career that hasn't even started yet, relegating your story to a few hundred folks on a Titans Reddit page, will get you your 6-part docuseries sent straight to DVD or to Tubi.
Okay, from a financial standpoint, this may turn out, and I understand where, because I think Jared even mentioned it. Oh, until you get it on, it should be on Amazon Prime or this, streaming platform or that streaming platform, and we all know what they are, the bigger ones. You got to do it on Tubi because you hadn't proven anything. Well, listen, from a financial standpoint, an investment standpoint, this was the best route to go, because however the language is written between the company that put together the docuseries and Cam Ward, the company, however that language is written out, you put in a little, and your investment and your return ends up being bigger, because then now, it's on Tubi today, but what if I blow up? What if I have a Jaden Daniels type, rookie season, or CJ Stroud, or even a Bo Nix where I lead my team to the playoffs? I can take that Tubi, whatever that contract was, and then we can get a bigger contract with an Apple, with a Netflix. So, when you say things like that, I think y'all not thinking about what could potentially be the end game. And I'm not saying that in his mind this is what he's probably thinking. Maybe his team is. Who's to say? It costs little at the front end, and the reward is bigger on the back end if I do what I am tasked to do, and that is to play quarterback at a high level for the Tennessee Titans. So who cares about whether it's on Tubi or Apple? What I care about is this. It's a docuseries chronicling his rise. And maybe they do have, what happened during the draft. But if it's coming out in September, how much actual Tennessee Titan footage would they have? Ask me, Adam. Ask me that question. Just ask it. If it's coming out in September,
yes,
right before the season, how much Titan footage do you think he's going to have in there?
There might be some footage at the end of him throwing balls in practice in the final montage, wearing a Titans practice jersey. I imagine that this thing is going to be produced before the start of the preseason.
Absolutely.
So the answer is minimal at best.
And a lot of it they probably already got. They probably already got old footage, old interviews. They probably got all of that stuff. And this is why the Titans probably didn't make it a big deal, because they probably thought, oh, it's done. It's not bleeding into the season because it stops. You will be able to watch it in September, right before the season starts. So I have no problem with what Cam Ward and his team and his docuseries. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I think those that bring it up for any reason, they're crazy. Something's wrong with them.
So Cam Ward had NIL deals with Adidas and Bose. Of course, Adidas, the apparel company, Bose, the headphone company, when he arrived in Miami. And he was quoted in a story from the South Florida Sun Sentinel about how he stays focused on his on-field tasks, despite becoming one of the most marketable players in the nation. And he said, quote, "It doesn't bother me one bit. All that stuff has been done. It's just finally getting out there now. My mind will always be on football. Football is the reason why I want to make a living in my life. I know what I have to do on the football field. None of the other stuff outside means nothing to me. Doesn't mean nothing to our building, but winning football games. And that's the only thing I care about."
And listen, that should be the quarterback's mentality. Hell, that should be every player's mentality, at least the ones on your team that you're counting on, that nothing matters, and that's excluding your family, of course. But beside that, nothing matters but what happens on this football field and how I prepare myself to help my team win or help the team win. So, again, I think this is a situation where, you want to, because of what happened in the past with Will Levis, you're not allowing Cam Ward. You're not giving him the grace that he deserves. It's not his fault that Will Levis chose to go that route. And I'm sure Will Levis, he had to do it over again. Like I said yesterday, he would do it differently. But you can't sit here and put your angst on Cam Ward or your concerns on Cam Ward. He's not Will Levis. I think totally different.
I think that's an important distinction. And I get it from the aspect of the Titans hyped up Will Levis. He didn't have any competition last summer. He was going to be the starter. We all knew that. It imploded very quickly. And the mayonnaise commercials, the memes every week of him doing the surrender cobra or whichever terrible play he made, he became a laughingstock. He absolutely became a laughingstock in the NFL. When people talked about the Tennessee Titans nationally, because we of course talk about the Titans on a much more micro level because we're here. But nationally, when people would talk about the Tennessee Titans, it would be, can you believe what Will Levis did yesterday? Like that's what it was. So I do think that some Titans fans have a fear that because it happened to Will Levis, it can happen to Cam Ward. And like you said, Derek, and this is what I would suggest to Titans fans, just think for a minute about the possibility that Cam Ward and Will Levis are two totally different people. Now, I'm not going to declare that Cam Ward is going to be a sure thing. We absolutely do not know that. But just because something happened to Will Levis doesn't mean it's going to happen to Cam Ward.
But here's what's going to be, and I hear it already. It's like this, preemptive thing. It's like I see it already. I know it's coming, so I know how to combat it. If he starts off slow, it doesn't matter that he's a rookie, but if he starts off slow, the first 5 or 6 games, they're going to be saying, "Oh, he did the docuseries.
Absolutely.
He did the docuseries." That didn't mean a hell of beans with how he played on the football field. Okay? I want to say that to you again in a different way. Listen, what Cam Ward chose to do in regards to that docuseries will have no bearings on how he is as a player in no point of his career. Other than you can see a guy that has developed at every stage of his life in football. So you just expect that he will develop here at this level as well. Will he be an all-time great? I don't know. Will he be horrible? I don't know. The chances are it's going to be somewhere in the middle. That's what the odds tell me, it's going to be somewhere in the middle. But make no mistake, and I want y'all to hear, no matter how many people try to tell y'all, oh, he's doing his docuseries and he's not all about team and ball and this, no matter how much they try to convince y'all that is indeed, I want to tell you from somebody that played it, listen to me, from somebody that played the game and seen this stuff, that doesn't determine whether he's going to be an elite player or not. I seen guys with no endorsements, no nothing, that were drafted in the first round or the second round or the third round, and they didn't pan out. Okay? I've seen guys with endorsements that have panned out. So it has nothing to do with who and how they're being endorsed. It has everything to do with who and what they do on the football field. So please don't fall down that trap. Don't step in that trap or fall down that rabbit hole of, oh, because he's doing the docuseries, and if he starts off slow in the season, it was because he did the docuseries. No, it has nothing, and I repeat, nothing to do with it.
Murphy is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Murphy, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, fellas. How are y'all?
Good.
Doing good.
I just wanted to weigh in. I think it's important. You put the fandom aside. I build brands for a living. And what I see here is it's simple business. Cam Ward has completed a story in his life. Mm-hmm. He has completed a story that people love to see, read, hear about. The underdog who became king, right? That story is done. Let this man leverage that story for his own benefit. He doesn't have to put yards in his stats column. He doesn't have to do anything. That story is told. And the people around him are much smarter, and I don't know who his advisors are, but they're clearly much smarter and have a better plan than Will Levis's. Will Levis immediately went and aligned to a product before he even put his butt in a seat on the sideline. And that is not necessarily the way to go, because look at what's happened. It's become mockery because he was all hat and no cattle. He couldn't back it up. He looked the part, sounded the part, but he wasn't the part. He was a cowboy without cattle in the pasture. Whereas Cam Ward now has something. He has, if you look at college as research and development, he has been investing in R&D in his brand and him as a product for the last 4 or 5 years. He has taken, now being number one in the draft, he is bringing his product to market. And he's making money off his story that can be told, and it's done. And he has, I think, in the best way, without associating himself with a product that may or may not be something he should associate himself with. He's leveraging his brand and getting that investment. And when it comes time for him to do what he needs to do on the field, he will probably have a larger brand awareness outside of the Titans because people are seeing his story. And all of that is so important when you get into your second year contract. I'm just looking down the road. It's up to that athlete to build that buzz and to build that excitement, because alone the NFL can't do that, but they can amplify your brand if it's already a strong one. I just wanted to give you guys that perspective. Thank you so much. Love your show.
Thank you, Murphy. That is
Murphy,
great.
that was great.
Is
You need to
great
clip that,
perspective.
man.
That
You
is
need to
great
clip that.
perspective. And I totally agree with him that Cam Ward, the section of his story from 0-star recruit to number 1 overall pick, from undesirable to undeniable, that's done. And that's what this docuseries appears to be about. The ending of the docuseries, I assume, is him having his name called by Roger Goodell as the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. That's the end of it. I don't think there's going to be an addition later in the season when he's playing games for the Tennessee Titans. So I would have a different perspective if Cam Ward announced, or Variety announced, or whoever announced that Cam Ward would have a film crew following him through training camp. Like, imagine a Hard Knocks only about Cam Ward. He's got his own production team. He's hiring his own people, and they're going to be following him with cameras every day during training camp. They're going to be on the field. He's going to be mic'd up. He's going to be in the meeting rooms. That might bother me. This is not that. This is him telling a story about a portion of his life, as Murphy said on the call, that has already happened.
Yes.
So I do not think it is analogous at all to compare what Cam Ward is doing versus what Will Levis did last year. I just think that Titans fans are concerned that the new top quarterback may fall into the same trap as the old top quarterback.
But again, the difference is that, and Murphy said it perfectly, he's not aligning himself with a product necessarily. Yes, Tubi is a stream, but the film is his. And like you said, it's already been done. He doesn't have to contribute really much to it other than maybe some, talking interviews, which they probably already done, seeming that it will be available in September, which means now they're just cutting and slicing and making sure they put it. I'm not a film person, but I'm sure this is what's probably happening, or probably adding in some last, minute B-roll. Is that what you call it? Yeah, B-roll?
B-roll,
Yeah.
yes.
So they add some last minute B-roll. So again, my main purpose in this is to tell people, don't get pulled down this rabbit hole. Don't let people convince you that this is and I understand, the Will Levis thing. I get it, but this is a different situation, totally different. Yes, you can try to, attach tentacles or attach a string to both of them somehow, some way, maybe, in your own, way. But if you just look at it for face value, it's nothing like what happened and what transpired last year with Will Levis. What he is doing, or what he has done, it's just like I said, has done. It's there. Now they're packaging it. And they found a streaming service and they're going to put it on that platform. And Cam Ward has nothing to do. He does nothing but sit back. What do people call it? Passive income. That's all this is for Cam Ward. It's passive income. I've developed the film. It's there. It's my story. The beginning of the end, the beginning to the end of my what would you
His
call
journey.
it? His journey. And
Yes.
now it's going to be a new one. That's already done. And now what I get to do is just go to work, prepare, and eventually when I look at my statements, there's money in the bank eventually. And I did the work already. So I don't understand why people are making this, not everyone, but are making this a big deal. It's not. If you just look at it for what it's worth, it's no way you can't put the two in the same ballpark. You just can't.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Cam Ward, the marketing of NFL rookie starting quarterbacks, the docuseries, all of those things. And look, I agree with our texter Gino that we'll look back at this in a few months and probably laugh that we spend so much time talking about it. But I do know that Titans fans, a certain section of Titans fans, one particularly loud Titans fan who occupies this microphone from 2 to 6 every weekday, is upset about Cam Ward doing this docuseries because he thinks he's made it. Well, he did make it.
Yeah, exactly.
He made it to the NFL.
Exactly.
I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick.
Right.
So,
So
I mean, he did.
technically-
Has he made it
Yes.
as an NFL quarterback?
Not yet.
No. Has he made it to the NFL? Yes. So I, for one, I've got no problem with the docuseries. Do I know if I'm going to watch it or not? I don't know.
I'm gonna watch it.
Tubi's free, so
Yeah, I'm
I
watching.
may give it a shot. I may watch the first episode, and if I'm intrigued enough, I'll watch the second. I'll give it at least one. I'll give it at least one viewing. But that doesn't happen until September. 615-737-1025. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, will join us coming up next. We'll talk Cam Ward. We'll talk Titans. We'll talk about the entire NFL. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Finken, 1025-1063 The Game.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 the game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, soon to be joined by Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst. Talked a lot about Cam Ward. Shedeur Sanders found himself in the news yesterday. Derek Mason, he was cited by police early Tuesday morning for driving 101 miles per hour in a 60-mile-per-hour speed limit zone. Now, again, people get pulled over for speeding all of the time. According to ESPN, Sanders must either pay a $250 fine for the fourth-degree misdemeanor or fight the ticket in court. But considering all of the talk around Shedeur Sanders and his plummet in the draft, not a great look for Shedeur Sanders to be pulled over for speeding at the end of the offseason program.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It could, because it's all about the optics. And he knows whether, he says it doesn't faze him or not, whether he says he cares or not, he understands that something affected outside of his ability to play the game of football. Something affected his drop. His draft status. So much so that, man, there's going to be a 30 for 30 made about that. I'm pretty sure, especially if his career takes off. But he has to understand, man, it's just the optics. I understand it's in the big scheme of things. It's all right. Everybody speeds, just about everybody speeds, and people get speeding tickets. But listen, as I tell my son, I ain't worried about everybody else. I'm only worried about you. As the Cleveland Browns, they're not worried about other guys. They're not worried about the city. They're not worried about people. They're worried about you speeding and how it looks. And you should be worried about that. Your dad should be worried about that, but you're a grown man. So this has nothing to do with his father, but he should know that, listen, yeah, I get speeding isn't a big deal. And, it's just a traffic violation. But two things here. One, the optics, because they're already on you. And, you want to start stacking up wins instead of losses. And then two, man, it can be gone just like that. Ask Henry Ruggs. And it was just so ironic that, all this, Henry Ruggs is, he was out, and telling his story and how regretful he was and how remorseful he was for just that one act that changed the lives of so many people. While he's telling his story, and then now it comes up on a blip. Again, it's not a big thing in the grand scheme of things, but the optics are bad considering what happened to you during the draft, and we know it had nothing to do with your ability to play the quarterback. And then, in prior years, we've seen how speeding, whether you're under the influence or not, driving reckless causes, at times, it alters people's lives. And you just don't want to be that guy. That's the thing. Coaches talk about this all the time at the end of camp. And you can ask every coach to a man and woman at the end of camp. Don't be that guy. Just don't be that guy or girl, because we're talking about the organization. We're not just talking about the team. We're sitting everybody down in a meeting. Don't be that person that the head coach, GM, offensive coordinator got to get a call at 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning because you've done something reckless. It maybe harmed yourself or another. You don't want to be that person. So I'm sure that was said to Shedeur Sanders. Don't be that guy. He knows it. He knows it. Again, I don't want to make this a big deal because I know a lot of other people will. But you got to understand, man, you're not building any goodwill over here. You're really not. As much as people want to like you, the person, when you do things, even though it's not, in the big scheme of things, it's not the end of the world, but you're just giving them more ammunition.
By the way, as fate would have it, Zach Edey was pulled over for driving 101 miles per hour.
Wow.
That happened in May, but it was reported yesterday. So
Wow.
101 miles per hour must be the number of the day. But Zach Edey of the Grizzlies faces a reckless driving charge in Indiana for
But it ain't a big deal,
driving
right?
101 in a 55.
But it ain't a big deal. with
Not in
Jackie.
this.
Yeah,
Not. I mean, that is not going to generate the headline
exactly.
that Shedeur Sanders generated
Absolutely.
for driving the same exact speed. And I guess if we're being technical here, Zach Edey was breaking the law even more because he was driving 101 in the 55 while Shedeur is driving 101 in the 60.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
just saying. But a few people pointed out that LeBron James, when he was in his early 20s, was pulled over for driving 101 miles per hour.
What is up with the 100? I think what happens is, and I'm not making light of any of this, but I think what happens is they get to that 99, then it's like, okay, I want to see if I can get to 100. They get to that 100, and then that one, and then the cops like whoop whoop, and you get pulled over. It's about getting to that century mark, I guess.
Colin Cowherd apparently said on his program today, when you fall to 144 in the draft and then try to match that number behind the wheel of a car, yeah, I don't think the same. Colin Cowherd is out on Shedeur Sanders after the Browns quarterback was caught driving 101 miles per hour.
See, then you have things like that. But people like him, they're looking for a reason to be out. So you don't worry about those people because they're automatically looking for a reason. And now, listen, you gave it to them, so let it be. But I'm talking about the people that that think about this, in a way that they see both sides and not just ready to cast somebody off. Because again, he hasn't prior to this, even though this is breaking a law, technically, he hasn't broken any laws prior to this meeting that I know of anyway. So it's more so of, the stuff that I've seen outside of football, all the antics and all this extracurricular stuff. Now I'm just looking for a solid reason, like a outside of the sort of football-ish world or entertainment world. I want to look for another reason to not like you. Oh, you gave it to me. You were speeding. You were doing 101 in a 60, even though it was a misdemeanor, fourth degree misdemeanor, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even though it's that, but I'm out on you. And you're gonna have people like Colin that do that. So be it. But again, you've given this to people. You've given them the gasoline to pour on the fire.
Jonathan in East Nashville says, my first and only ticket was doing 101 miles per hour.
What is up with this?
Leaving band camp in high school, going to Kentucky Kingdom. There's a lot to unpack there, Jonathan. I also went to band camp, so who am I to judge? I've never gotten a speeding ticket.
Good, man. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yeah,
I have been pulled over. I've been pulled over twice in my life. And I've been driving now for 20 plus years. The first was for driving with an expired tag.
Yes.
The second was having my phone in my lap while driving.
How did they see your phone in your lap? They must have saw you have it on it, and then you try to throw it down on your lap real quick.
Maybe. Who's to say? But Bill is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com, on why he didn't like the Cam docuseries. Bill, please go ahead.
Hi. A few minutes ago, I thought I heard you say that you didn't understand why it is that people are lumping Cam and Levis all together. The reason is we don't want them to come in and do all the other BS stuff. We want them to come in and play football. Okay? That's what we want them to do. If they want to make money some other way, just do it quietly so we don't see it. Just come in and play football. That's all we want you to do. Don't make stupid commercials. Don't make docuseries and all that stuff. Just play football. That's all the fans want to do.
Thank you for the call, Bill. And I'm sensing some smoke coming out of Derek Mason's ears over there. So I want to give him a couple of minutes to think on that and react to it on the other side. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
So yesterday, Shedeur Sanders got caught speeding over 100 miles an hour. He's a quarterback. Mike Tomlin often says 2 is a trend. Can't screw up 3 or 4 times. 2 is a trend. Just 2 times. I'm not sure if I need 2 times when you're a young quarterback. 1 bad judgment turns me off. But I have now, in the last couple of months, 2 things that really turn me off with Shedeur Sanders, who I have championed. That cringy, awful, legendary draft room. Bro, you're a B prospect. You know, your dad's prime time, who led with his ego for years. You got to have a little self-awareness. I had more than one GM say, total turnoff. Come on, it's not the end of the world. It's a bad look. And now this. 100 miles an hour. Yep. All you fanboys, go ahead. Manziel, Baker, Deshaun Watson, defended it to the hilt on your Reddit account. Sorry. Don't minimize it. Don't pander. This is not good for a quarterback. Not good. As of today, and I've said this for years, I do not cling to opinions. New information, new opinion. I'm an airline pilot. We got a storm coming. Here's the latest radar. I'm changing my route, not flying headfirst into it. I don't think about him the same. There was a moment I thought Will Levis, about 4 months out from the draft, had a chance. And I turned on Will Levis when he started showing up like a bodybuilder, gun show. And I had 2 NFL coaches, both needing quarterbacks, who text me, got my number and text me. They're like, this is the exact conversation we are having in our building right now. 2 NFL coaches, head coaches. They're like, bro, we're laughing watching this. It matters. New information. Legendary. 100 miles an hour. Judgment is 50% of being a quarterback.
That was Colin Cowherd. Will Levis catching strays in that monologue about Shedeur Sanders.
You knew he would. Come on now.
TD from Nashville, not Teron Davenport, but another TD from Nashville says, speaking from experience, oftentimes an officer will write the ticket for 101 to save you a little bit of embarrassment when actually you were doing way more than that. However, that speed is still classified as reckless, hence the reason for the repeated 101 citation.
Yeah, see, here's because there's, this story is going to, Mesh Daddy Samuel, it will change, and it recently has changed because we only knew about the initial speeding ticket that he got the other day, that he was doing 101 miles per hour. And you think, okay, all right, everyone just got to be careful. But come to find out, this is not his first ticket. And I'm not saying like, oh, he got a ticket 2 years ago and now that's not what I'm saying, people. He recently was cited for speeding twice in Northeast Ohio within a short period. The most recent incident involved being clocked at 101 in the 60 mile per hour zone on Interstate 71 North. So he had been pulled over prior, and this occurred late at night on June 17th. So he had been pulled over twice in a short span of time. It changes things. It does changes things because now it's like, okay, man, are you not going to learn? What is it going to take for you to learn? Is it going to take for Henry Ruggs for you to learn? Like, and I get it. I get young people, they want to speed. I understand you got a car and it goes fast and you want to speed. I get that part. I was young too. Okay. So I understand it. But how many times is it going to take you already, Shedeur, after people are Colin doesn't like you because he doesn't like your dad. It's evident. Okay. He's irritated about how your dad, went about his career. So he's taking part of that in making it a reason sort of why he doesn't, think kindly of you, at least as a player or a prospect. But man, dude, you gotta it's judgment. Your judgment. How are you seeing? And it does bring up, can we trust you on the football field? from what I've seen, yes, you can. The things that he did in college, he was a really good quarterback. That makes me think, yeah, I can trust him on a football field. But when things like this happen, and it's not just once, it's twice, it's like, man, when are you going to, what is it going to take for you to say, I can't do this no more? I can't, like this part. And it's not like it's something you can't do.
Do you want to respond to Bill's call from the previous segment?
Yeah. Okay.
Now that you've cooled off a little bit?
Let me regroup.
Okay. So Bill's call, for those who
Yes.
did not hear it, Bill said that if Cam Ward wants to make money, have any other extracurricular activities outside of football, he should do it on his own time and he should keep it quiet, is basically what he said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Basically, and as he was saying it, it was like, it brought up that shut up and dribble.
Right.
And you got to, men, women in this sports period, they're not like the men and women in 1980, 70, even 90s. They're not, as far as, voicing their opinion, standing up for things, aligning themselves with things, being more aware of what's going on, in the world. And listen, I know, some people, don't know how to quite articulate it, but to sit here and say, oh, just play football and we don't want that other stuff. No, come on, man. He's more than that. I understand the premise of, hey, let football be your main thing. And we heard Rand say it last year a lot. And people got to a point they started laughing at it. Let the main thing be the main thing. We haven't outlawed that yet, have we? Let the main thing be the main thing. Okay, good.
Not yet.
It's kind of close.
Exactly. But I understand.
Use it judiciously.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand that premise. But you got to understand these individuals are much more than that. And this whole docuseries thing, this is a crumb on the table with a bunch of food. This just, it doesn't matter. It's minuscule in comparison to what he potentially can be getting, or what some have taken advantage of. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but you see first round picks or first picks overall, they're doing endorsements, shoes, they're doing all this other stuff. For him to just have, at this point, now, I don't know if anything else comes out, but at this point, things that I know about, this was a docuseries that was already recorded. It's about the rise of Cam Ward from a 0-star to now the first pick in the NFL draft. We've never seen that before, at least since they've been doing the star rating. That story, like Murphy said, that came on early, and I hope you heard him. That story is done, it's packaged. He's done that. Now he's starting a new chapter, a new book in his life. So when you say, oh, that's what he's doing, he's just playing ball. Think about it. Just think about it a little bit more. He is just playing ball. He's not, cameras are not around him. They wasn't following him into camp. I mean, cameras outside of the Tennessee Titans or the NFL. They wasn't following him around and asking questions and doing interviews. They wasn't doing any of that stuff. He didn't promote it. He didn't hawk it. We didn't find out about it. We didn't find out about it from Cam. We found out about it through Vanity. Was it
Variety?
Variety.
Yep.
And he had a chance. You know how many times he's been at that podium? Probably more than I can count. More than I was in my first 4 years in the NFL, I can tell you that. And that's only in a training camp and leading up to the draft. So again, he's being he's doing those things that y'all want him to do. He's about ball. That's it. What's so hard to look at that and say, okay, yeah, he is. But again, when you're looking for something, you will find it. Again, when you're looking for something, and it seems like y'all are looking deep for this one, even though it's right there, and Cam didn't bring it up, and he had every opportunity to bring it up. He did not say one word about it.
One texter says, I received 2 tickets in one day from the same police officer when I was 22. I am now the CEO of a company. One mistake does not preclude success in life.
How did he get did he not, or he or she not know that driving back down that street was gonna get him a ticket, or did the guy catch him somewhere else, or the officer catch him somewhere else?
I have responded to the texter asking how that happened.
Yeah,
so
how
hopefully
did
the
that
texter
happen?
will let us know within the next few minutes
That's
before we
the
have
last thing I ever want to happen.
before we
It's
have
like,
Elliot Freeman.
because I've gotten pulled over for speeding. I never want to get pulled over by the same cop again. It's like, oh, no.
And in that clip from Colin Cowherd talking about Will Levis, I was racking my brain. Was it the mirror selfies or something
the
that he
mirror
posted
selfies that
before the
came
draft
out
about
with the
him
guns.
getting in shape?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Will, it seems
does
like
it shock you that Will Levis would take mirror selfies?
no,
Not the
it doesn't.
slightest.
No.
Will Levis, and I hope, and it seemed like he has. Will Levis suffered from, this sort of what can the NFL do for me, as opposed to what can I do for this league? What legacy and lasting imprint I could put on this league? Will Levis was the opposite. And I hope, and it seems like he has, I hope that has changed for him. Because anytime, especially when you're a young guy, anytime you are, unless you are a supreme athlete, primetime Deion Sanders, a supreme athlete, or Bo Jackson, something like that, that's something you just can't do. It can't happen.
I just think that there are a lot of sports fans who think that their favorite athletes should be living and breathing and eating the sport that they play.
Why? Tell me why.
Because that's what they think it takes to win.
Because all the docuseries or anything else they've seen, what have Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky,
The Mamba mentality.
Yeah, these great, they think, oh, they got to do it like them. And okay, I get it. I understand it. But there's different ways of being about all ball.
And I think it's, I wouldn't want a person to be this, like a robot, and all they do is focus on their sport and that they have no life outside of preparing for the sport that they play. I don't think that's healthy.
It's not healthy for the locker room.
Right. So again, I have absolutely no issue with Cam Ward in a docuseries. That again, that story has been told. He was a 0-star recruit. The story ends at him being the number 1 pick. This particular docuseries, that story's been told. He's done that. So I know that in a few months we'll all look back at this and probably laugh. That texter texted back and said, "Me and my football teammates were going to a movie, got a ticket going, and got a ticket coming back."
I blame y'all. Because y'all knew driving down that street, more than likely that cop was going to be right in that same exact spot, or he was going to be across the street to be able to come out and get, because he knew they were coming back, because he knew where they were going, to the movies. Because I guarantee you what they said. Officer pulled him, where you going, young man? Going to the movies. Okay, here's your ticket. Coming back, they knew you were coming back. Oh, 2 hours is up. Let me get back. Oh, my coffee breaks up. Let me go back out there.
615-737-1025. Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL insider, will join us next. We'll talk the Stanley Cup final. The offseason is now in full swing. The draft is around the corner. So is free agency. The Predators made a trade yesterday. We'll talk all about that and more with Elliot Freeman. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
D. Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, joined on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, by Sportsnet NHL insider Elliot Freeman, presented by Old National Bank. Get old, a road-weary Elliot Freeman. I'm sure. Elliot, I want to ask you to start about a trade the Predators made yesterday. They reacquired Eric Haula from the New Jersey Devils for a 4th-round pick and a minor league defenseman. What does that trade signal to you about the direction the Predators could go this offseason?
Well, it just added even more swagger to their dressing room. The great nickname, Hall of Famer, because of Eric's confidence in himself, and he is a very confident lad. Look, we knew that Barry Trotz was looking for center help. We knew that one of the things that he definitely believed after last season was that he was going to try to find some. And while he's not the youngest guy in the world, Haula, he can certainly play it, and he is confident in his ability to play it. And, I'll say this. What it also says to me, Adam, is that as I'm hearing around the league right now, is that almost everybody wants to get better. And while that may sound stupid, it's not, because every year there are teams that say this is not our year, or we don't expect to contend for a playoff spot. And this year, there's basically only one team that's coming right out and saying, we're not competing, and that's Pittsburgh. So, everybody wants to make trades and everybody wants to get better, but it's very hard to find players. And New Jersey wants to open up cap room. And that says to me that Nashville is honest in its intention that's a move for now. Eric Haula can fill a hole for you now, and Nashville's not too interested in taking steps backwards.
There is one team out there, Elliot, that I wonder if the Predators can emulate this offseason. It's not the Florida Panthers, because I know everybody wants to do what the Panthers are doing. It's the Washington Capitals, because of that 1-year retool that they had last season, namely Pierre-Luc Dubois, Jacob Chikrin, even a couple of years back with Dylan Strome. But I'm wondering if there is a player out there who fits the criteria that Pierre-Luc Dubois did last season, a player who's still in the prime of his career, early to mid-20s, high pedigree, top draft pick in his draft year, bounced around the league, didn't work out in Columbus, didn't work out in Winnipeg, didn't work out in LA. The Capitals were able to bring him in and made him a successful part of their team. Is there a Dubois-like player out there available to teams this summer?
I think that one of the guys who jumps off the top of my head would be Elias Pettersson from Vancouver. But I don't think they're trading him, Adam, unless they're getting a good center back, like a top center back. Like, there's no question that the way it went last year for Pettersson, he was not at the top of his game. There was a lot of talk about whether or not they were going to move him. He hasn't bounced around as much as Dubois, but he was a high pick, and he is coming off a really rough year. But Vancouver seems like, unless you give them, I don't see Nashville having what Vancouver is going to want to do that. So I think it's more likely he stays. He would have been one name like that. I think another guy who could have been like that, although he's older, is Zibanejad. But again, the Rangers haven't asked him to submit teams. He's got full control, and they seem to want to solve their problems as opposed to trade their problem. I'll say this. The name that was out there a couple of weeks ago was Jason Robertson. Again, a guy who's only been with one team. I'm not sure. I think now it looks like Dallas is going to sign him, or try to anyway. So that's a name that I would have thought about, even though he's not a center. Like, I see a lot of guys who maybe aren't as well traveled as Dubois, but were potentially available. I'm just not sure how it's all going to end up. Pettersson, I just don't think you have what Vancouver is going to ask for them to do it. He's the first guy who jumped into my head.
Connor McDavid addressing reporters today, along with the rest of the Edmonton Oilers. And of course, McDavid was asked about re-signing with the Oilers because he's eligible for an extension in a couple of weeks. And he said, quote, if I feel that there's a good window to win here over and over again, then signing is no problem. How are you feeling about the prospects of McDavid signing before the season starts? Or do you think that this is something that could bleed into the next regular season?
I think there's the possibility of that, Adam, of bleeding into the regular season, only because if you look at, like, I don't think Connor McDavid and the Oilers look at it as it has to happen July 1st. I don't believe that. And number two, I think you guys have to sign for any year. Teams are going to have a better situation than that one right off the top. The fact that Leon is there and he's locked in for 8 more years, that's Edmonton's best evidence, right? Like, the two of them together have now gone to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. It's going to be hard to show better than that. Now, I think what he's saying is we've got to fix up some of our other issues, and I assume the Oilers are going to work on just doing that. But, Adam, that's the reason if I was the Oilers, I would feel the most confident. Now, I always say the surest predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Leon Draisaitl signed his contract extension in Edmonton last year on September the 3rd. Austin Matthews, who's represented by the same agent as McDavid, that's Judd Moldaver, he signed his contract extension in August. So there is some history there for both team and agent to wait a bit. That's another reason I don't panic about it. To me, honestly, Adam, the most interesting question is going to be term. You know, is McDavid going to do the full 8, or is he going to do maybe a shorter one and then keep his options open? Like, if you look at Matthews' history, he's done 3 years, 5 years, 4 years. McDavid did 3 and then 8. I am curious to see what he does term-wise here. And for money, they'll throw whatever they want at him.
That's true. And to your point about past leading to the future, Roman Josi, represented by Judd Moldaver, when he signed his contract extension several years ago, and it took until, I believe, the end of October for Roman Josi to put pen to paper. So that does seem like
there's a good one. Yeah.
So that,
that's good comparable.
So speaking of Roman Josi, Derek has a question for you about
speaking of
Josi.
Roman Josi, and I do have a question about the Florida Panthers as well. But speaking of Roman Josi, obviously he's been diagnosed with POTS, and I'm sure he's still learning, as is the Nashville Predators, more and more about POTS. But how do you think this affects, not necessarily him, because the team is gonna have to find out a way to manage this, but how does it affect them when it comes to roster? Because they don't know some of these symptoms that is associated with POTS. You just don't know when they're going to hit. So how do you think this affect them and Barry as he puts together this roster?
Well, I think like there are athletes, Derek, who have played with this before, so that's the most important thing. Like, you just have to monitor it, and you have to be aware of it. So. I think it sounds to me like the first thing I heard was, like, there have been situations before in the NHL where players have had concussion-like symptoms and then found out it wasn't a concussion, it was something else, and it helped them a lot. So when I first read the story, I was optimistic for Josi's future, because it's clear that he was worried that he had like some sort of concussion symptoms that might affect the rest of his career. And that's not the case. So the first time I read through the story, I actually thought it was good news, because, he found out that he didn't have lasting concussion symptoms. The other situation, from what I understand about it, as long as you're on top of it and as long as you monitor it and these trainers we've seen over the years in some very frightening situations, these trainers, they know what they're doing. So unless I'm given reason not to be optimistic, I am optimistic to believe that Yossi can play with this and just manage it properly.
Now, speaking of the future, the Florida Panthers, they've won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and we know what Edmonton is dealing with, trying to figure out how they're going to keep their number one guy in McDavid, but also the Florida Panthers, if they want a three-peat, they got to find a way to keep Ekblad and Bennett. Do you think they will, push more of their resources to trying to sign both of them, or do you think they're just going to try to pick out one guy to sign?
I think they're going to try to do as many as they can.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one advantage that they have, Derek, that's I think the advantage that they have that a lot of other teams didn't have, Derek, is that the cap is now going up. Like because of COVID and how things were coming out of COVID, the cap didn't go up for a long time. Now, Florida is trying to do this in an era where there's going to be a bit of a squeeze for them next year, but then in the next couple of years after that, we're going to see real jumps, and there are possibilities we could see even more. So it's going to be there is going to be flexibility that other teams didn't have. They offered, I think they had Bennett. They offered a Bennett, which around like one of their players, Carter Verhaeghe, signed this year for 8 times 7 with bonus structure. I think that's what they were hoping to get Bennett at. I think they're going to have to bend a little bit. Like everybody here is going to have to compromise. Bennett's not going to be able to get what he's going to get in the open market. I think he's okay with that. I think he wants to stay. Florida's going to have to bend a bit. Ekblad, he played the best hockey of his life. I've heard term is very important to him. I don't think Florida was willing to offer that. I think that's probably the biggest change that Florida's going to have to make was their offer to him or how they felt about him. And Marchand, I got to tell you,
and that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, well, also too, like nobody mentions Nate Schmidt. That guy had a hell of a year for them. That's another guy who's going to do very well at Florida, unless Florida can find a way to keep him. But Marchand, he's 37 years old, and I heard there was a 3 times 8 out there for him. 3 years at $8 million, Derek. And someone said to me that overall number, $24 million, might end up being low. So, like the way he played, Derek, he's going to get paid.
Elliot, I do want to ask you, sort of in lieu of what I was talking about with Pierre-Luc Dubois, looking at players, young 20s who could be on the move. There are 2 that are intriguing to me. J.J. Peterka in Buffalo and Marco Rossi in Minnesota, because I feel like those are the types of players who would sort of qualify for that Capitals-esque retool on the fly type thing. What are you hearing about Peterka and Rossi with their respective teams?
Well, the Sabres went from saying we're not doing that to we don't want to do that. We have to at least listen about it. I think they know the player is unhappy. Around the league, I still think the feeling is Buffalo doesn't want to do it. So we'll see where that goes. Like that says to me, you're going to have to really give Buffalo a reason to do it. Rossi, the thing about Rossi is Bill Guerin, the Minnesota GM, has made it very clear that them trading Rossi is not about the player. They just disagree on the financial contract, what it should be. So they're just having a disagreement on what he should be paid, but they have no issue with him as a player. And what Guerin has indicated, Adam, is that he's not making his team work. So you've either got to give him something that doesn't make the move backward, or give him something that allows him to make moves that in another deal that doesn't allow him to move backwards. So that's the issue with those particular players.
One more for you, Elliot. What more can you tell us about Marco Rossi? Because he had a breakout season for the Wild. He had 60 points
and his ice time fell off a cliff in the postseason. And we're familiar with John Hines around here, but I'm not familiar exactly with what happened with Rossi, that he went from such a productive player in the regular season to being a complete non-factor in the playoffs. What am I missing?
Well, he got put on the fourth line. And I think one of the things that I heard happened was that Rossi, they offered him a bridge deal this year. And Rossi said, and his representative said, no offense, but no, because you put him on the fourth line in the playoffs, and that could affect our earning potential out of a bridge deal. They got a really tough matchup, a big, strong group in Vegas, and I just think they felt that Rossi couldn't handle it. You know, the game's different in the playoffs, and Rossi. I think Rossi was bothered by that. I think he was upset by that, and I wouldn't expect anything different. With these athletes, they have enormous pride in themselves, and I heard that really bothered him. And I think he's just in a situation where he wants to make sure he's somewhere where he's going to play top line center. And I think in the playoffs, they just felt that he wasn't as effective versus Vegas, and they moved him down the lineup.
Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL insider, joining us on D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick, presented by Old National Bank. Get old. Elliot, great stuff. As always, get some rest. We'll talk to you next week, one day before the NHL draft.
All right, boys. Take care. Have a great weekend.
You as well. Elliot Freeman on the program. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, LeBron James made plenty of headlines yesterday for something that he said. I thought the timing was interesting because of what happened in the Stanley Cup final, even though LeBron James wasn't talking about the Stanley Cup final. And we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, 1025-1063, The Game.
Happy Thursday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting some type of goal to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some news for you, and I got some solutions, okay? I got some answers for you, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge. It addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. And people, I'm telling you, I can only tell you about this because I've experienced it. I was there yesterday. They took some more blood. They asked me about how I was feeling. Tell me, did I need to adjust anything as far as eating or whatnot? And I said, no, I'm perfect. My weight is at a stable. I'm at a stable weight now, and this is where I want to stay. So they will sit there, they will give you a program, and then they will follow up to make sure you are adhering to that program, or if you need to adjust a little bit. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport and why it's the all be all of everything. Like, okay, you weren't a great player if you never won a championship. Yeah. It's like, or if you won one, then you
Not
can't
enough.
be in the same conversation with this person. It's like,
but that's a great point, because what you're saying is like, no matter what you have, you need more. No matter what.
Right.
No matter what. Like, it never ends.
Yeah,
right?
It's I don't know, man. It's just like, you sit here and tell me, you know, Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, you know, are unbelievable. Like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys because this guy won 1 ring or won 2 rings or won, like, it's just weird to me. It's like saying Peyton Manning can't be in the same room with Brady or Mahomes because he only has 1 ring. They don't never discuss that in their sport.
Right.
Or telling me that Dan Marino is not the greatest slinger of all time, or he can't be in the room with those guys because he didn't win a championship. They don't discuss those things, you know. I don't know. I don't know. Did Barry Bonds win a World Series? I don't think so. I don't think so. Barry Bonds never won a World Series, and you can't sit here and tell me that he's not the greatest baseball player to ever touch a bat. I don't understand where it came from. I don't know where it started. I hope that we have to appreciate more of what guys have been able to accomplish, what guys have been able to do. A ring is a team accomplishment.
That was LeBron James and Steve Nash on the Mind the Game podcast. Was that the podcast that LeBron James was doing with JJ Redick before JJ Redick became LeBron James's coach?
Yeah. JJ Redick better watch out.
Steve Nash has already been a coach, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
It didn't go so well.
Too well, yeah.
Not too well.
No. So there's been a lot of shooting of the messenger when it comes to LeBron James talking about ring culture. Colin Cowherd, we played him earlier in the program talking about Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he was the only one who said this, but he's the one that comes to mind. Said, you think he went to Miami to lay on the beach? Of course not.
No.
So there's a lot of shooting of the messenger here with LeBron James talking about ring culture. But the reason why I've been thinking about this a little bit differently today is because these conversations are being had right now about Connor McDavid. Because the Edmonton Oilers, for the 2nd year in a row, came up short in the Stanley Cup final against the Florida Panthers. So Connor McDavid is 0-2 all-time in the Stanley Cup final. And there have been plenty of conversations being had in the hockey world right now about Connor McDavid's place in it. And keep him out of the GOAT conversation right now, because GOATs have to break through and win a title at some point. And I find it interesting because here are just some numbers for Connor McDavid in 10 seasons in the NHL. He's been a 3-time MVP. He's been a 5-time scoring champion, which means in half of his seasons, he has led the league in points. He won playoff MVP last year, despite losing in the Stanley Cup final. That rarely happens, that a player on the losing team wins playoff MVP. And he has the 3rd highest scoring average in playoff history, 1.56 points per game. The only 2 players who have a higher points per game average in the playoffs all time are Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. As far as I'm concerned, Connor McDavid has already etched his name alongside the all-time greats in the NHL. However, there are going to be plenty of people who say Connor McDavid does not belong in that category until he wins the Stanley Cup. But LeBron James talking about ring culture generated a lot of conversation yesterday.
Listen, Connor McDavid, he still has he has many years in front of him that he can play this game. And I'm sure he's going to play it at a high level. If not all of it, at least 90% of his career remaining. But until he wins a ring, he will be sort of like an Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, to me, is the greatest passer.
But Aaron Rodgers has won the Super Bowl.
But this is what I'm saying. Aaron Rodgers, probably, if you look at it, before Patrick Mahomes, it was Aaron Rodgers. Do whatever he wanted with the football. It wasn't even a case. Once you saw Aaron Rodgers, it was like, okay, he's the dude. And you just thought, oh, already he's going to win 5 championships. He will catch Joe Montana. This is the guy that's going to do it. But he only got 1. He can't even sit at the table with Peyton, Tom, Mahomes. He can't sit at that table. Montana. He can't. As great as his talent is or was, his talent was much better than those 4 guys that I named. Patrick could probably give him a run for his money, but those are no. But he can't sit at that table because those guys got multiple championships. It's not to say that he's not a great player, but listen, we understand this league. And here's the reason why LeBron James is bringing this up. LeBron James is calculated in everything that I believe, everything that he does. He's calculated and great for him. It's brilliant. But LeBron's getting older and he sees SGA and OKC, damn, not going to win a championship. Jokic is still in Denver with Murray. Dang. There seems to be a resurgence, kind of, sort of, even though they were outside the playoffs where they been that play-in. Golden State is still there. Man. Houston Rockets, oh my goodness, that's a loaded team. Then we got the second coming of Michael Jordan in Minnesota. Like, I'm looking around, and we got Ja Morant in Memphis. I'm looking around and thinking, like, I may not ever get another championship. And that is just in the West. We ain't even talking about the East. They don't have as many teams as the West, but we ain't even talking about the East. He may not even get back to a championship round. He understands that I may not ever get another championship again. So now how do I change this narrative? Because I ain't catching Mike. It seems like I ain't catching Mike. Mike got 6. I'm not catching Kareem or Kobe because they got 5. Like, how do I change the narrative now? Even though he's still considered, he is one of the rare guys that you can leave the door open so he can watch and see what's going on in that room. He's probably one of those rare guys that you can do that with because his talent, and maybe Connor McDavid, once he win one, he may be one of those guys that because his talent is so good, he's partially in the room, but not at the table. He's kind of like on a smaller table, but in the room with the big table. That's LeBron James, and he knows it. So now he wants to change the narrative. Oh, the ring coach. Man, you sound like a loser. You do.
That's not where I was expecting this to go.
You do. And I love, like, LeBron, like, beside Kobe, because Kobe, my dude, Kobe number 1 over Jordan. Beside Kobe and Jordan, and Magic, because Magic's a Michigan State guy, and that's the only reason why.
Of course.
But beside those, he's the guy. He's this generation's Michael Jordan or my Kobe Bryant to this generation. But this was a loser mentality. Like, I'm going to resign. I'm just going to wash my hands of it. You know, I never catch Mike because I'm not getting 2 more. I'm not getting another, so I won't catch Kobe. I think he has 4. Kobe has 5. I won't catch Kobe. I won't catch Kareem. And we're talking about great players.
Yes, Kobe has 5. LeBron has 4.
Exactly. So I'm still on par with Dwayne Wade and Shaq. And there's nothing wrong with that. Still great players. But when you talk about that upper echelon, that's when you start to separate. Like like, okay, we've gotten outer space now. Now you stay right here. We're gonna go a little bit further, you know, because you ain't got the rings we got. So LeBron, that's a loser mentality, man. As long as you're playing LeBron, it should be I'm trying to get rings. And it should be about at certain positions with certain individuals, it is about rings. Quarterbacks, when you're considered great in the NBA, like a LeBron or a Jordan or a Bird or a Magic, you compare not their greatness, but the championships they got. Because there's no comparison in the greatness. I mean, they all were great players individually, but you start to compare the championships.
And I think it depends on the sport. Because think about Connor McDavid. Actually, before we get to this, PK Subban was on First Take the other day talking about Connor McDavid's place in NHL history, despite having not won the Stanley Cup yet. Here's what PK Subban said.
For me, I don't think there's any point in playing sports if it's not about winning a championship. You play to win. I dreamt about winning a Stanley Cup. Even though I didn't get one, my dream was to win a cup. It wasn't to drive around in an Escalade. It wasn't to wear nice tailored suits. It wasn't to have the nicest watch. It wasn't to score a bunch of points. It was to win a championship. Now, whether you win one or not, we know it doesn't always happen. But to consider yourself the greatest, to me, you got to win a championship. And it doesn't matter what sport you're in. Some sports, it's more difficult than others. But we can't sit here and say that, oh, I want to be the greatest even though I didn't win. No. As hockey players in our sport, it's all about winning. Nothing's more important. Listen, last night I sat there and had to watch guys win the cup. I can't stand watching guys hoist that thing because all of us want to do it, but not everybody can. So you got to respect the game. The game, no one is bigger than the game in hockey. No one is bigger than that trophy. Nothing matters more than that trophy. That's in our sport.
That was PK Subban on First Take the other day.
He's right.
And here's where I'm defending Connor McDavid a little bit. It does depend on the sport. And by the way, Connor McDavid is doing a lot of cover-up for Leon Draisaitl. Leon Draisaitl, also an outstanding player, who's also 0 for 2 in the Stanley Cup final. But most of the attention is on McDavid, so we'll stick with McDavid. In hockey, although McDavid can take over a game in an instant, it's different than LeBron James because LeBron James knows every time he comes up the floor, the ball is going through LeBron James. Quarterbacks, they have their hand on the ball every play. A pitcher in baseball has their hand on the ball every play. In hockey, just the nature of the game, the randomness of the game, the amount of time that Connor McDavid spends on the ice relative to LeBron James on the court. I'm looking up here. I want to see how many minutes Connor McDavid played per game in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He played 24 minutes, 26 seconds a night. So almost half of the game. There's such a randomness to hockey that I feel like it's harder to make this argument that you're making about LeBron James when it comes to Connor McDavid.
Okay.
Just because of how the game of hockey works. So Connor McDavid plays, nearly 25 minutes a game in the playoffs. I would venture to guess, and I could probably find this exact number. I would venture to guess that Connor McDavid has the puck on his stick in the offensive zone for roughly 2 minutes a game. That's it. So I have a harder time making that argument about ring culture in hockey than I do in other sports, just because of the randomness of hockey versus the other sports. However, Connor McDavid will be judged against Sidney Crosby and Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux because they won championships. He has yet to win one. I am really, really hoping that Connor McDavid wins the Stanley Cup at some point. He deserves it. He's an outstanding player. The things that he can do, the players that I just named, they can't do all of those things. I mean, Connor McDavid, that may be a hyperbole, but Connor McDavid is a special talent.
And just take, for instance, you look at Allen Iverson's career. There's no doubt that Allen Iverson was one of the greatest, and I mean greatest players of all time. But he doesn't get talked about as much as he probably deserves. Why? Because he didn't win a championship. And you look at guys like Charles Barkley, even guys probably would in football. You speak of one championship. Aaron Rodgers, go back to him. He won one, and everybody knows that his ability to throw the football is probably second to none, but he's not going to get mentioned, exhaustively as those other guys get mentioned. Manny, Brady, Mahomes. When we start arguing about great quarterbacks, we never bring up Aaron Rodgers. Why? Because he hadn't won the championships that they are won. Now, if you want to start to say, okay, let's rank it based upon the skill set, then yeah, Aaron Rodgers will be up there all day, every day. He may be number one in a lot of people's rankings. But when you start adding things to it, more importantly, that championship, he starts falling down the slide. When you're looking at your flight and then the flight changed and it goes down to the next flight, next flight, next flight. That's what it's like with Aaron Rodgers. Like he started at the top because we were just talking about the skill, and then all of a sudden we added something else in there, and it started to flip. And you went from 1, now you're at 10 or at 5 because you hadn't won as many championships as these guys have. I'm with PK Subban. When you're a great player like that, if you don't have the championships that the other guys that are considered great have, then you can't be mentioned in the same breath with them. You just can't.
Let's go to Steve quickly on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Steve, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
I've been listening to your comments, and I've been thinking about this for a while. I go to the Predators games, and the NHL is based out of Toronto. So it's got a huge Canadian fan base. Kids in Canada, my manager grew up in Canada. They play hockey. They don't play football, basketball, or baseball. They grew up playing that. And I'm just wondering if players outside the United States and Canada, man, are they really driven to win a Stanley Cup, or are they just content with making their millions of dollars and playing hockey? I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you for the call, Steve. Let's react to that on the other side. We'll also take your reaction, 615-737-1025. LeBron James's comments on ring culture. Agree or disagree? 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
You're out of your mind. There is no way that LeBron will ever be Jordan. Nobody will ever be Jordan, okay?
Okay, LeBron's a better rebounder and passer.
Will you let me finish? Can you let me finish? Call me when LeBron has 6 championships.
Is that your only argument?
It's the only argument I need, Sean!
Oh man, that's the argument right
That
there.
wasn't a good movie. That was Bad Teacher.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember when that came out, but it was Cameron Diaz.
I thought it was funny.
Justin Timberlake. That was Jason Segel
Uh-huh.
in that clip. But that clip resonates with sports fans.
Man.
I've got that's all the evidence I need.
Exactly.
Right?
6 championships, 3-peat twice.
So the caller before was
Uh-huh.
asking about whether hockey players born outside of North America are motivated to win championships. Was that it?
Yeah.
I mean, the captain of the team that just won the past 2 championships is Finnish. So yeah. I don't think there's a correlation between nationality and drive to win a title. Well, let me add, Derek, when you think about football players, the greatest players who never won a Super Bowl, who is the first player that always comes to mind?
Dan Marino.
Correct. So when you are ranking quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, like what's the highest Dan Marino can possibly go if he does not have the Super Bowl, which he does not?
Yeah, you're talking
because he is one of the greatest.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever,
but never won a championship.
No, yeah.
So if you're putting the list together, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm wondering, is there a threshold for Dan Marino? Dan Marino cannot be higher than blank because he never won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so it would be Brady, Manning, Montana, Brady, Manning, Montana. Who else? I don't consider Bradshaw or Aikman, even though they won multiple championships.
So that's a good question.
Yeah,
would you consider Dan Marino a better quarterback than Troy Aikman?
Yes.
Although Aikman has won what, 3?
3, yeah. Yes, I consider him a better quarterback. But see, in this, where the problem lies, in that example, Troy Aikman, whose career accolades, like not accolades, his career stats doesn't compare to Dan Marino's, I don't believe. But yet still, when we talk about great quarterbacks, I think people would probably argue, because of the championships, that Troy Aikman you may have an argument for Troy Aikman. This is one of those situations where it's like, man, Troy Aikman had the benefit of, maybe one of the greatest teams ever. But then I can say that about Joe Montana too, because he spent a part of his career, with Jerry Rice, and they had some stacked teams too. So I think the threshold for Joe Montana, not for Joe Montana, but Dan Marino is different because he doesn't have one. So John Elway would be ahead of him, and people would put Troy Aikman ahead of him, and so you got 5 guys already ahead of him. So I would say that threshold is probably 6 or 7, somewhere around there. But then again, some people are going to say Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, because they have championships and he doesn't.
Like Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls. Does anyone believe that Eli Manning was a better quarterback than Dan Marino?
Eli Manning is probably not even in a lot of people's mind top, or cracking the top 10. Now he may just be outside of the top 10. But yeah, not more and more I think about it. He can't be ahead of Rodgers. He can't be ahead of Favre. And he can't be ahead of the 3 guys we already know, Mahomes, Brady, and Manning.
But see, this is the point, is that we are
because those are and quarterbacks, it's all about winning a championship.
I wouldn't say we're questioning the greatness of Dan Marino, because there's no questioning the greatness of Dan Marino, but we're grading him on a sliding scale because he never won a title, which was what LeBron James's point was on the Mind the Game podcast, talking about Barry Bonds, for example.
Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey guys, you were talking about Troy Aikman, and I think one of the things why, you're right. I mean, Troy Aikman's regular season numbers were not that spectacular. I think he only had 2, maybe at the most 3 seasons where he threw 20 or more touchdowns passing the season. Because I remember he had one season, I think he threw something like 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Another year where he threw something like 19 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. He had stats like that. But the thing that stood out, a lot of people look at, is what he did in the playoffs, because he was great in the playoffs. And of course, he had Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin and stuff, but it was his playoff numbers and everything. But, people also talk about quarterbacks like Roger Staubach and, and whether or not you could throw Jim Kelly, who went to 4 straight Super Bowls, but of course he never won. And Fran Tarkenton, who also went to Super Bowls, he put a spectacular numbers, but he never went. And all of that, a lot of that is kind of what you would call subjective. So those are just some interesting things to throw out, guys. Y'all take care and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Eric. He's right. But I think the point of it is that championships, when you start to separate, those players from that upper echelon, that group that, frankly, in each sport there may be only 2 or 3. When you start getting, then there has to be a separation. There has to be a delineation between the two, because, and again, to me, it sounds like a guy that is reserved to understanding. I'm not winning another championship. These teams now, they're much better than my Laker team, and I'm damn sure not catching Jordan. And because his argument is all about Michael Jordan. That's what his argument is all about. Because there are half of the NBA, or people that love the NBA like Michael Jordan. Then there are some that like LeBron James, and then Kobe. But I think there's overwhelmingly more people that love Michael Jordan and consider him the greatest of all time than LeBron. And LeBron can't stand that. So now he's trying to change the narrative, which is smart on his part.
Jonathan in Nashville says, I think the importance of winning a championship has slightly become more diminished nowadays when speaking about the great players, simply because all of the sports are more money driven. And that, I mean, most players are going to choose a long contract with the high payout, oftentimes that gets them stuck on a team that is either fading or rebuilding with no chance of a championship.
And it's all about highlights too. It's like, oh, I had all these highlights, but you ain't win a championship, man. It's there has to be a separation. And I'm not talking about like receivers. I'm talking, these are mainly for quarterbacks. Like, oh, did you see that game he played back in this, that, but did he win a championship? Like, if Steve McNair had we won that championship, everyone would talk about Steve McNair much different than what they do. He would be closer to a Hall of Fame than not. So you can't tell me that at certain positions or certain players in certain sports, championships are not, the end all be all, because it is. Again, had Steve McNair won 1 championship, he would have been talked about a lot different than what he is today. So again, LeBron, he's resigned to say, you know what, I'm not getting any more. So how do I continue to fight for my claim as being the greatest player of all time? Well, I changed the rules in midstream. I changed the rules. That's what this generation like doing. They like change the rules. And sometimes it's good, but in this situation, it's not. LeBron, stop it.
One texter says, if you were a GM and all these quarterbacks were in a draft, who would you pick number 1? I would probably pick Dan Marino.
Damn, I put all these,
like all of the quarterbacks we've been talking about with championships and such.
Wow, goodness.
But
to me, I still would pick Manny. I just love Peyton Manning. I still would pick Peyton Manning. That's just me.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there can be an exemption for players who do not have championships, who are just incredible, for lack of a better term. Dan Marino would probably qualify. At this point, Connor McDavid would probably qualify.
Lamar Jackson.
Right.
Josh Allen.
Right. Like, if Connor McDavid continues on this, let's say Connor McDavid plays for 8 more years and he wins 3 more MVPs and 5 more scoring titles. And he wins the scoring title in more than half of his career seasons. And he wins the MVP in a third of his seasons. I'm just throwing numbers out there right now. Like, I think you can make an exemption for Connor McDavid. If his career continues on this track,
individually, and he does not win a title, I think you make an exception.
He will be considered Lamar Jackson. That's who he is. He and Lamar are one and the same. They are. I mean, Lamar to me is with his skill set, just like Connor McDavid, his skill set. He has the best skill set at the quarterback position in the NFL right now. Connor McDavid has the best skill set in the NHL right now. Player right now. Both of them have won MVPs. The only difference is Connor McDavid has been to a Stanley Cup final twice, back to back. Lamar hasn't. But when you're talking about accolades, they're the same identical person. And until they both win a championship, they just going to be considered as great players. Damn, they were transcending players, man. That Connor McDavid, the stuff he did on the ice, man, couldn't nobody do it, but it stops there. Lamar Jackson, man, did you see what he did on a football? But it stops there. Why? Because you ain't got no championships.
That'll do it for us today. Derek is off tomorrow.
Yes.
A much deserved day off for Derek Mason.
Just today, that's all.
I'm just going to have to figure out how to do Ask D Mace then. I'll have to work on my D Mace impression between now and tomorrow at 12:30. That might be problematic. So maybe I won't do that.
Just a little.
But we'll be back.
Just a little.
We'll be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Stillman & Company coming up next.
Be love, your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Thursday. Peace.